Hey there, welcome to the Bible in 5. This is part 2 of exploring the book of Ezekiel. So you'll recall from the first part, Ezekiel is a priest and a prophet. He's with the exiles in Babylon, and he has an encounter with Yahweh's glory, which we'll talk about more in a minute, here in Babylon. And his message to the people of Israel is essentially, here's why you ended up in exile. Here's how it happened. So he brought judgment against Israel because of their sin and brokenness and so on. They had so corrupted the temple and worshiping other gods that Yahweh's presence and glory had left the temple. And so he brings judgments, words of judgment against Israel, but also accusations of judgment against the nations. That's how the first half of the book of Ezekiel is summarized. There's a key moment that happens in chapter 33. Ezekiel hears word back in Jerusalem that yes, there's been waves of exiles coming, but that actually the king of Babylon has burned the city of Jerusalem to the ground, including the temple. The temple is destroyed. And for us, we may think, that's sad or that's tragic, but for Ezekiel as a priest, and for the people of Israel as a whole, their whole worldview, their whole faith in Yahweh, everything revolved around the temple in Jerusalem. And so what God is saying is that because of Israel's sin, he's withdrawn his presence from the temple, and he's just essentially left it to its own. He allows it to be destroyed by the king of Babylon. And this event right here raises all sorts of questions then. So what about the bigger promises given to Israel, like given to Abraham, that somehow blessing and salvation was supposed to come to all nations through these people? What about the promise to David of a Messiah that would come and realize those promises to Abraham? What about the nations who were supposed to be blessed by what happened through Abraham and the Messiah, and now they themselves are just corrupt as the people of Israel? All of this is hanging in the air as we hear the story about the temple being destroyed. And the last two sections of the book of Ezekiel address just those questions. So in chapters 34 to 39, these are the hope chapters of the book of Ezekiel. And what they do is they promise that Israel's exile and the destruction of Jerusalem is not God's final word to the people of Israel, but rather that he's going to rescue them out of exile. He's going to put his spirit in their hearts so that they can truly obey the Torah, which reveals Ezekiel's understanding of part of the brokenness of sin of Israel, especially in these chapters. He says they have a heart problem. Their hearts are so broken and compromised that they can't actually obey Yahweh. And so the solution comes in that the coming of the Spirit will heal the hearts of the people. Also going on in these chapters is the promise of a new David, which David died hundreds of years ago. So it revives the promise to David of a coming Messiah. And so there are a number of chapters in 37 and 34 that promise a new king for Israel, a new shepherd, a new David, a new Messiah who will regather the people and restore their hearts. Connected with these promises of the coming Messiah are also the last 8 chapters of the book, which is essentially Ezekiel gets a forward glimpse into God's promises being fulfilled once the Messiah has come. And as a priest, in him thinking about what it would mean for God to restore Israel, he envisions Israel back in the land with a new Jerusalem and a new temple. And what he sees at the very end of the book is Yahweh's glory, which left the temple here in chapter 11. It returns to inhabit the new temple. And so it's a vision of God forgiving and restoring, coming to dwell with his people once again. Now, what's in these chapters is actually very difficult for most of us to read. It's like reading an architectural description or plan. It's like all measurements of the new temple and the city and so on. But what this is showing us is the passion, the care for detail that Ezekiel has to see God's promises fulfilled. There's different interpretations that Christians have taken throughout history of what this new temple is. Some people think that it's literally a prediction of a new temple that will be in Jerusalem at some point, and that whenever Jesus returns, he will take up authority as king in the New Jerusalem with this new temple. This other view is that these chapters are describing symbolic architecture and symbolic geography. And then there's a number of hints that that's probably what Ezekiel means by this. So for example, he depicts the New Jerusalem and the new temple in Jerusalem, but with a huge river rushing out of the temple and so on, and down into the Dead Sea. And it goes into the Dead Sea, which is the deadest body of water on the planet, and it revives the Dead Sea with fish and so on. And there are a number of features in these chapters that seem like they are more symbols pointing to the bigger reality of God restoring his promises to his people, but also to the nations to restore and make our broken creation into a new one. So whatever interpretation you take, it's about God fulfilling his promises despite Israel's sin and corruption. So that's kind of the big sweep of the book of Ezekiel, and the big theme of Yahweh's glory kind of unites the book, is that he reveals his glory to his people even when they're in exile. He withdraws his presence from people when they're in sin, but after bringing judgment and letting them work out the consequences of their sinful decisions, he brings hope and a new temple. So it's a very powerful book. It's pretty complex, I know, but I hope this will help you as you read through it. Have a good week.